is the synergistic acceleration, or the accelerating synergy of impacts that are bringing about forest ecosystem crashes. That is what we are seeing right at this point in time, okay? We've got an accelerating accumulation of different factors that are leading to the crash of our forest ecosystems. The snow gums is just one symptom of what's going on. The dieback, so the beetles have got control of the snow gums because those snow gums have been deeply stressed by a long El Nino, increasing temperature and drought impacts, okay? And so symptomatic of that is the crashing of the snow gums in the forest ecosystem. So it's not just the snow gums, it's entire forest ecosystems. And so in Threpo, my eyes go, oh my God, is this really happening? I go and talk to the sustainability committee who are already onto it, talking to the ANU people about the snow gum dieback. But if you look at the second, third, fourth generation trees that are coming back after the 21 and 39 fires, those trees are predominantly saplings. The old alpine ash forests are collapsing in front of our eyes. The canopies have opened up, the trees are crashing, and the saplings are dying and falling over. So we got a heavy rain event last winter, heavy snow event, because that system came off Southeast Australia. It wasn't your typical cold front coming off the Southern Ocean, and there's a bit of detail in that article that delivers big snow events. It was cold, moist snow, and the trees literally crashed in front of our eyes. Peter and I went to look at the trees, and some of them are infested by dry rot, not termites. So that means that those trees have been drought affected for quite a long time. And then some of my favourite Eucalyptus stellulata going up to Bob's Ridge, this beautiful tree that I've been watching for 20 years, is dying, it's crashing, it's dead. So same thing, dry rot, and probably some of the same beetles. So the forest ecosystems are critical to the state of the Snowy Mountains catchments, their capacity to deliver inflows into the major rivers, okay? And that means that the inflows for all of the 12 rivers rising out of the Snowy Mountains ranges have been affected because of this enduring El Nino drought sequence. Now, the story about trees. What can we feel now? We're sitting under these beautiful trees. What do you feel?
Cool breeze.
Cool breeze. And this is the beauty of individual trees, but particularly entire ecosystems. It's the breeze effect around a tree, or what's called the biotic pump. So they are creating their own biosphere, pumping out water, creating a breeze, but importantly, coming out of the top of the trees, out of every leaf and branch, is a complex microorganism ecosystem, bacteria, which seeds the atmosphere. And these microorganisms are hydrostatic, they're hydroscopic. So the droplets of moisture in the atmosphere will form around those bacteria, which, by the way, have entire communities in the atmosphere and multiply and cause precipitation. Now, what we've seen in the Snowy Mountains, over time, all of the graphs, the data shows a decrease in winter precipitation and an increase in the mean, the average winter temperature. So we've got the temperature going up, the precipitation going down, a shortening of the snow season, a reducing of the snowpack, okay, contraction of the snow in the mountains, which once again delivers water to the major rivers, but it also means that those ecosystems are now endangered because their whole ecology has changed in a very short period of time. Okay? So I was talking with Ken Green on the phone yesterday. Have you come across Ken's research? So Ken, who did all the animal work, he worked with my dad up on Twynham. They've got a 50-year-old transect of snow to what the snowpack's doing. And Ken said to me yesterday, do you know, I could not believe it. There's nothing left on Cosy and the snowpatch on Twynham. He sent up one of the guides, Doug Chatton, to check it out for him. There's nothing left. So within the last decade, we've lost the permanent snow patches, the snow drifts, that have been there since the last interglacial. So the last glaciation was 11 to 30,000 years ago, and past that the end of the next interglacial. So we're talking more than 30,000 years ago, bang, gone, in the last decade, the residual snow patches. And from Dane Wimbush's research, some of those snow patches would take at least 3 years for the rain and other effects to melt them. We have synergies coming from every direction accelerating to entirely change the ecosystems of the snowy mountains above the tree line, below the tree line, and impacts on the Snowy River. Okay, so we humans are having incredible impacts on the rivers. So let's come back to the Snowy River, and what we see now is a post-rain event, kind of slight rise of the river, but not massively so over the weir. Enough, but not massively. The downstream impacts up and down again, a little bit movement of sludge, and some environmental improvements. So I'm sure Rob has filled you in that the community over more than 30 years has tried to get water back into the Snowy River, and negotiating with governments, a little bit of dodgy business where they promise the Mwamba will be released and then take it back, etc. They promised 28% natural flows in the river, but in reality it's 21%. Guess what happened last year? Hello, what happened last year? The minister has the discretion under the legislation to withhold environmental flows. Why? Because it's a drought, because that's when exactly the river needs water. So the minister can override all of the agreements and say, well, actually, I think we need a bit more water out west, where there's a huge amount of water theft and water loss and unaccounted gigalitres of water that nobody knows has gone where. Okay, so ministerial discretion. Who's doing law, water law? Who's doing anything in that space? Governance? Anyone in that space to do with water? And so environmental legislation is really important stuff. And so the water lawyers, at the moment they're all committed to finding out where the water theft is and where the water loss is. But environmental law is so important in governance. And people are quite crafty, depending which desk they're sitting at the time. We'll just make that a grey area so the lawyers can argue, well, actually, we can hold that water back because we need it for the MIA, where we still have crops that shouldn't be in Australia. Or we have to compensate for the water that's disappeared out of the Murray-Darling Basin system that we can't account for. So we'll hold the water back from the Snowy River last year at the height of the drought. That's exactly what happened. So the environmental releases were withheld. Now, I've got to talk to you about Angel John. So, Rob, you remember Angel John, don't you? So Angel John Gallard was the Snowy River keeper for quite a while. And I was thinking about John a couple of days ago. And without John, because he died of leukemia a few years ago, we don't have somebody printing out the charts for water releases and thumping his hand on the table and saying, not good enough. So that level of activism has kind of slid under the table a little bit without John. But what we do have, we still have a Snowy River Alliance, which at the moment seems to be a little bit flat like the water. But what I'd like to tell you about is the importance still of human action, people power, people action. So people power delivered under the Snowy Hydro corporatisation agreements, the so-called 28% environmental flows. People power delivered us public ownership of Snowy Hydro. So it's almost 15 years, June the 2nd this year, since John Howard read the writing on the wall, and he said, oh my God, I can't sell the Snowy Scheme. Why? The public didn't want to sell the Snowy Scheme right across Australia, the American civil engineers. I don't know if anyone remembers that campaign 15 years ago, but it was huge. And it came from every direction, all over Australia, every level of society, you know, advocates, activists, mothers, people who like paddling, anybody, fishermen, people down the lower end of the Snowy where we have Robert Saunay just rejoined the Snowy River Keepers down in the Gippsland. The quality of fish and fishing down at the estuary was lost. So everyone from everywhere said, no, we don't want to sell Snowy Hydro. There were a handful of people that wanted to sell. Ministers on all sides of the political cake, if you like, who were going to get sweetheart deals, possibly, allegedly, shares in Snowy Hydro, and etc. And people inside the game, inside the tent, would potentially benefit from the sale of Snowy Hydro, okay? But the Australian people said no. And so Snowy Hydro remained in public ownership. There was a kind of a public inquiry into the ongoing ownership of Snowy Hydro in Cooma. They tried to gag me, but fortunately one of the politicians there said, no, let us speak. So I did, and was able to contribute to that inquiry. We managed to keep Snowy in public ownership. There were a couple of other attempts to sell. And then Malcolm Turnbull, when he was in, does anybody remember Turnbull? How many PMs ago was that? I like Turnbull. Anyway, he was back there somewhere. Well, anyway, Turnbull had a bit of a brain. I think he still does. Do we need to go into the shade?
Yeah.
Let's go to the shade. We'll go for a little walk.